Hey folks, Andy here with Fish Lectronics in Pequot Lakes, Minnesota. We're standing in front of a bass boat with a Garmin trolling motor on it. We're going to remove this motor and unbox the Garmin Force Pro. We're going to take you step by step on how to install it on this boat. There's a couple miscellaneous items we need to do before. Some of that is removing the transducers off this old motor to transfer them onto the new motor. We've already removed the sonars. We're going to open up this bow plate, get our hands underneath there, and then remove the fasteners and pull this old motor off. So now that we have the front of the boat all prepped, let's go ahead and open up this box and see what's all inside. In the main box, we have the trolling motor base and the trolling motor itself, and inside that box were 3 smaller boxes. In those boxes, we have the stabilizing arm or the bounce buster. We have the foot pedal. We have a mounting template for the trolling motor base. We have 2 different props. One's a weedless prop and the other one is a turbo prop with mounting hardware in the box. And then we also have some other miscellaneous hardware as well as the owner's manual. And I always refer to that owner's manual if you are doing the installation yourself. You'll see the step-by-step instructions on how to get started, and you'll also see a list of the tools and supplies needed to complete the process. So the first step we're going to do is pull out the trolling motor base template. We're going to just set it up on the bow of the boat and kind of size things up. The bow of the boat is orientated on this template. You're going to follow the arrows, set that in place. We're going to make sure the bow bumper is overhanging the gunnel of the boat. The other thing we need to take into consideration is when this trolling motor is mounted and in the stowed position, we want to make sure that the head of the trolling motor is inside of the boat to avoid any obstructions with dock posts or other boats. And because we already have taken a trolling motor off of this, we're going to try to utilize the mounting holes that are already in here. So we're just going to kind of eyeball this up, locate our existing mounting holes, line them up with the mounting holes on the template, verify that that's okay, and then we're going to go ahead and mount the base. We're going to go ahead and pull out the safety strap and the mounting hardware and get that laid out on the deck. Then we're going to grab the actual trolling motor base and we're going to set that up on the bow and see how we line up with our existing holes on the deck. I'm going to locate the existing holes just by simply pushing a screwdriver down through the base into the holes that we already have from that old trolling motor, and those 2 are lining up perfect. So we're going to start with that. Verify that these back holes are the same. And they are, so we're going to go ahead and use those as well. The old holes from the old motor are lining up with the new holes on the new motor, so we're just going to go ahead and use those, and we're going to get our mounting hardware started and poke these through the bottom of the bow plate. We're going to take our fender washers and our brass nylocks, and we're just going to get those started on the bottom of each one of these 4 fasteners. One other thing to take into consideration is checking the bottom side of this bow plate for any obstructions such as support members, wiring harnesses, things of that nature, where if you're going to drill the holes through here, you could damage some wiring pieces underneath there. Because we had a motor on here already, we knew it was free. We did confirm that nothing moved or got in the way, but our bottom is free and clear of any obstructions. So we're just able to pop these mounting hardware through there. So now that I have all the nylocks finger tightened, we're going to drive them home with this impact driver and socket. Now that we have everything securely fastened, we're going to go ahead and finish the installation of the mount. With the base fastened, the next step is to take the lower arm, pull on the release cord, and actually lock it into place. From there, we're going to make sure our 2 link arms are completely pushed in. And then we're going to take the actual trolling motor itself out of the box, set it up on top of this mount, and take this pivot pin and push it through the drive housing of the trolling motor, through these holes, and securely fastening the bottom portion of the trolling motor to the lower arm. One thing to note is on the bottom of this what they call the servo motor, is there's a bushing on each side of here, held in with a piece of tape. Very important, those have to stay in place. That pivot pin we talked about earlier is going to go through that, and that bushing is going to keep everything nice and tight. Then also when we put it on there, you don't want to use any kind of force with that pivot pin. It should go in there, it's snug, but it should go in there with just your bare hands. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So now that the pivot pin is in place, we're going to go ahead and shoot our release cable up through the bottom. Put the cable through the top of the servo motor. So our next step is to mount the gas shock to the lift link that's on that lower base. So you'll notice it'll only go in one place. And then there's two holes that'll fasten the gas shock to the base. So we're going to go ahead and put those in. I think it was hardware pack C. There's 4 of them. We're only going to use 2 for this part of it, and there is a little bit of Loctite on there. So I like to start these with just a hand screwdriver just to make sure nothing's cross thread. We'll just go ahead and snug those down. Our next step is to mount the upper arm to the top holes in the steering servo motor. And again, there's bushings in this top arm that are taped in that we need to be aware of. We don't want to lose those. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and remove this data cable so we don't pinch it. So we'll just get that out of the way. We'll free up our bushings. In hardware pack D, we got the pin that's going to lock the upper arm to the steering servo motor, as well as a couple fasteners and washers. So to mount that top arm to the steering servo, you have to actually get it up and over. And in some cases, you might have some trailer obstructions. So to get over those obstructions, pull on the release cord, and that'll give you the clearance to get that top arm where it needs to go in that steering servo. So now we'll go ahead and push that pin through our holes. Before we push the pin through, I like to just get one of these fasteners and washers started so I don't overdrive it and it squirts out the other end. So I'll just get that started. Then we'll have to pull on the motor a little bit and at the same time lift up on this arm to get the holes to line up. And again, just hand force is all you should need to get it through there. You don't want to drive on it at all for fear of breaking those bushings in there. So we'll go ahead and flush that out on this side, and then we'll get our other washer and fastener and go ahead and tighten everything up. So our next step is to take the data cable that's coming out of the steering servo housing and connect that to the display panel on the top of the mount. Right now it's a little bit tight, we don't have the clearance, so what I like to do is partially stow the motor, then just put a block of wood in there, and then you'll see underneath the display has a receptacle for this data cable to go into, and it is keyed. If you look close, there's a key on there, so that will accept it on the display panel. So you don't want to force it, you want to feel it kind of click in, and then you go ahead and tighten it up. And we're going to go ahead and install the pull handle on the lift cable. So in hardware pack E, you'll notice the upper and lower part of the handle and a couple fasteners. That's as simple as putting the cable through the bottom portion of it, installing the washer, and just a spring clip. That'll lock into place there. And then you take the top of the handle, put it over the top, and then just insert your 2 screws. So our next step is to route the power cable and the transducer cable through the channel on the starboard side or right side of the top mounting plate. But before we do that, we want to make sure we have a distance of 16 inches, which is critical because that allows the motor to fold up without restricting the power cable. So if there isn't a mark on this cord at approximately 16 inches, we're going to make one. So for our reference, I'm going to just bump of tape where the cable's coming out. There's 16 inches. I'm just gonna put a little tick mark there. And then we're gonna route these cables through this channel. Now we're gonna take our transducer cord and run it through the channel on the starboard side or right side of the top arm of the trolling motor base. From there, we're gonna take our power cord and run it on top of the transducer cord through that same channel. After routing our power cable and our transducer cable through the channel, we're gonna go ahead and secure those two cables to the side of the upper arm. In hardware pack F, you'll find some metal clips along with some small fasteners that'll secure that in its place. Before we do that, make note we made that 16-inch reference point earlier. We're gonna put that clip right over that mark. So when you're fastening these wires to the motor, you're gonna wanna make sure we have our clip over the 16-inch mark on the power cable, and then that also our transducer cable is of similar length as the power cable, so we have enough slack where this stuff opens up when the motor stows. So there's two clips in this process. There's one toward the outside of the boat, and then there's another one that we will put on the base of this upper arm. So to complete the cable management process, we're gonna actually stow the motor and flatten it out. And this clip is a little bit different. There's only one screw hole on the top and actually a little clip on the bottom of it. You'll see on the plastic side plate of the trolling motor, there's a slot that'll accept the tab on the bottom of this. So we're gonna start that tab in the slot. Then we're just gonna simply push that in place and secure the tab into the side plate with the provided screw. Now your cable management process is complete. After the routing of our cables, we're gonna go ahead and put the motor in the stowed position and attach our lower spring arm. While you're doing that, you're gonna take that spring arm and lift it up out of the way of the shaft and lower unit. Go ahead and take the packaging off. And similar with the upper spring arm, the lower spring arm, is what we're attaching now, has the safety arm that will be accepted into the plastic housing. We'll line all that up, and then we'll go ahead and put our two screws in. Now we're gonna go ahead and power up this trolling motor. Out of the box, the trolling motor power cable has two ring tongue terminals. And that's fine in instances where your trolling motor is direct wired or doesn't utilize their plug or receptacle in the boat. If that were the case, there'd be something similar to this, like a terminal block, where this would be in the bow of the boat with leads coming from your batteries, and then you would just simply attach the ring tongues to the appropriate sides of the terminal block. However, this particular boat has a receptacle in the front. So we're gonna match that receptacle by putting the right plug on this trolling motor, which is just a 3-prong plug. So in order to do that, we're gonna go ahead and cut these ring tongues off of it and strip some insulation back and fasten the wire leads into the back of this plug. So we got the insulation stripped off of our wires. We're gonna go ahead and put the cover on over the wires. And then you'll notice this is a 3-prong plug. And again, we're just matching the receptacle that's in the boat. Typically, number 1 is battery negative, and number 2 is gonna be your 24 or 36 positive. We've already confirmed in this boat that 1 is indeed negative and number 2 is indeed battery 36 volt positive. So we're gonna go ahead and fasten our wires into 1 and 2 and complete the power process. Next step we're gonna perform is to put the prop on the motor. Just pull the prop out, and in that prop box, you're gonna see a small bag of hardware. We're gonna insert the drive pin through the hole in the armature shaft, and I like to put that parallel with the floor just to keep it from falling off, with equal distances sticking out on each side. You'll see in the prop, it's notched to accept that drive pin. So we'll line that up. And the hardware pack is a spacer. We're gonna slide that over the shaft. Next goes your flat washer, then your lock washer, and next would be the nut. But before we do that, I always like to take a little bit of anti-seize and just put some on the threads of that shaft just to keep anything from seizing up. We'll hand tighten the nut. Then we'll take a 9/16 socket and you'll feel it bottom out. And once it's bottomed out, your prop is securely fastened to the motor. We're gonna go ahead now and put on the stabilizing arm on the trolling motor base. So in the box, you're gonna find the bracket that holds the arm to the motor, the arm itself, a bag of hardware, a bag of caps for the stabilizing arm, and the instruction manual. So the stabilizing bracket is designed to go either on the port side or the starboard side of the boat. It doesn't matter either way, that's more of a personal preference than anything. But what is important is this folded portion of the bracket has to go toward the steering servo motor. So we're gonna put it on this side of the boat because this particular angler has his stomp switches on the other side, which would interfere with the stabilizing arm. We're gonna go ahead and get our fasteners just finger tightened for now, and then get a socket and snug them up. Now that that's complete, there's 2 set screws that are gonna go through the folded portion of the bracket. And I'm just gonna start those for now. Now that we have the stabilizing arm in the bracket, we can trim it. Now that's optional, but obviously you can see we have a lot sticking up here. So we're gonna trim that off to get it out of the way. We decided to go with a height that's about even with the top of the steering servo motor. And the reason for that is you'll notice this top cap has a groove in it. And what you can do with that groove is when the motor is in the stowed position like it is now, that release cable will actually click in place. So you can have it on top there, convenient, ready to pull and deploy your motor. So we're gonna go ahead and mark this and get it cut to length. You can cut your stabilizing arm using either a hacksaw, or here in the shop we have a power saw with a special metal blade in it. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this to length. We're gonna tighten up our set screws and put our cap on. And you'll notice by putting that on the motor, it takes all the bounce off, especially when you're in rough water or traveling down the road. The foot pedal has a couple different methods to power it up. It comes with a power cord that you can hook to boat power, 12 volt positive. It also has a battery compartment where you can put 2 AA batteries in it. When using batteries to power up your foot pedal, you have more options as to where you want to put the foot pedal. Basically, you can put it anywhere in the boat to control the motor. If you use the power cord, you're limited to the length of the power cord. So if you're only a bow fisherman and you don't want to mess around with batteries, go ahead and power this to the boat 12 volt positive power supply. If you find yourself wanting to use the foot pedal in different locations of the boat and not being dedicated to bow control only, go ahead and use the batteries. So that completes the assembly and installation of the Garmin Force Pro. We're going to continue with some small items as far as putting the transducers back on this motor that we removed from the previous motor, and just start wrapping things up here. So after we buttoned up the front of this boat, the last thing we did as far as the installation process goes with this trolling motor was to hook the transducer cord into the Garmin head unit. So that's all done. So with that, our installation is complete. What I like about this motor, the new Garmin Force Pro, is this new locking mechanism to control the depth of the trolling motor, the LED arrow indicator on the front for low light conditions, and the feature I really like is the reverse thrust in the lower unit. So with that, hopefully you can take our tips and tricks, install your own Garmin Force Pro, and as always, refer to the owner's manual and the instructions manual.